Welcome to another edition of Community Matters. I am Jim Cameron, your host and program director here at TV 79, and we are joined today by a frequent guest on our program, David Genovese, a local developer. I'm not sure if the title is president or founder or grand poobah of Baywater Properties. Which is it's just to be accurate here, David.
Founder's fine. Founder's fine.
Founder of Baywater Properties. And we've had you on the program in the past, and we have been following with bated breath the development of your Corbin district project, which is what we want to update folks on today. So just as a time reference, we're recording this in December of 2021. I actually went back, David, and looked at some of the older interviews that we had done, and your hopes and expectations in terms of moving this project along, they go back a long time, and it's taken a bit longer, I think, than you had ever feared or maybe certainly hoped. How long has this project been underway?
We started talking about it in 2005. We closed upon the first purchases in 2007 of the 10 Corbin and 30 Corbin building, the post office building. And two other properties on Old Kings Highway South. And we really began to kind of work on the original idea, I would say, constructively in 2007. We thought we would be building in sometime around 2010. I've done the same thing. I've looked back at emails I sent to people, especially some prospective tenants, and looked at like what I thought, where I thought we would be at certain dates, and definitely we were off. But I would say that, with the benefit of time and, kind of reflection, I really believe, actually, as tiring as it's been, and so that's 16 years to this point and probably close to 3 from here to being done, 19 years, more than half my career. The reality is, it's a better project. Things have changed in Connecticut and in Darien, and the project's gotten larger, and we can talk about that. And I think in the end, it's a better project and it's a better outcome for the town of Darien through the time.
Always the optimist. I guess you have to be if you're a developer. You have to have patience and perseverance. But let's get some metrics on the table. How we're going to look at a map here, kind of an overhead sky view. How big are all these pieces of land combined?
So the total acreage is about 7 acres. There is about an acre on the side of Corbin Drive alongside 1020 Post Road and 36 Old Kings Highway South. That's the project, that part of the project that's in construction right now. The first 3 buildings that will be built. And then on the other side of Corbin Drive, following all the way to the exit ramp aside the Bank of America building, that's about 6 acres. And, the original idea was just the corner of Corbin Drive and the Post Road where the Darien Toy Box is and, the stores leading up to Helen Ainson and then back to the post office. That was really the original idea. But, to be candid, Penny Glassmeyer, my partner, built Grove Street Plaza, which really kicked off the revitalization of downtown Darien. And Penny, and I kind of share a view that we're doing this once and we wanted to do it right. And the more time we spent on the property, looking around, looking at what we were doing, the more we realized that by adding to it, and we quickly came to the view that we should reach all the way to what was then Fairbanks Photo. You probably remember Fairbanks Photo, where Green and Tonic and Morley is today, or are today. We looked to there, and then we kept thinking, well, if we build this great project to that point and we leave this sort of functionally obsolete monolithic building of Bank of America in place, won't that look odd? And that's what compelled us to kind of reach further toward the exit ramp. And so, as we got deeper into it, as we got probably a little bit more passionate about what we were doing and realized the value of what could happen, the bigger our ambition became. And, we definitely made our lives more complicated and missed any expectation of timing that we might have had in the beginning. But that's how we got here.
And how many different parcels of land did you have to assemble for this district, as you're calling it?
16 different parcels, which were owned by something like a total of 60 families. So there were some families in partnerships, and there were some properties, that were owned by sole proprietors, but unfortunately there were only a couple of those. And then we also happened upon the requirement of having to work with the state and the federal government to relocate the drainage easement that ran behind 1020 Post along the back of the building that used to house Mathnasium and the karate studio and the Tibbetts real estate. So that there was I don't know if you remember, but there used to be an open drainage ditch that kind of ran in that parking lot. And that's why you could never walk from the Center Street parking lot over to Corbin Drive. You'd have to jump over this sort of drainage culvert that was concrete lined. We actually worked with the state to get approval to bury that drainage system in our other properties that we happen to own, which was just by luck, honestly, not by design. And that allowed us to come up with this idea of building the first 3 buildings along Corbin Drive, backing up to 1020 Post, which will fundamentally change the way in which a pedestrian or a car can move around that area.
So they can now get from that parking lot that exists already into the new complex without
Correct.
having to jump the ditch, so to speak.
Correct. I mean, otherwise you'd have had to go up the driveway or through the passageway at 1020 and then go across and down Corbin Drive. But now you'll be able to literally walk from Center Street parking lot into what we'll call the prime part of the Corbin district. And so that's always been a goal, is just to massively increase as much as we could the pedestrian friendliness of Darien, hoping that, we can make it easier for people to park their car and walk for a bit and move around by foot instead of, parking at Greaves Pharmacy. And we're all guilty of it. I've done it too. Pull up, park at Greaves Pharmacy, jump out, jump back in, drive to the sports shop. I mean, that's kind of crazy. But our town didn't lend itself to.
We need the exercise, I can tell you.
Yeah.
I'll speak personally. What's going to happen to the post office?
So they have not made a public announcement yet. We had come to an agreement with them, an agreement in principle, to move twice. Once to the new building being built on Corbin Drive, and then again on completion over to a new building that we're building kind of on the site of the Bank of America site today. And we worked hard with them, and we actually had to design into the project. And you can see on the drawings, if you pull those up, you can see the loading dock that we designed into the building for the post office. They, are not the most efficient, nimble organization. They've got a lot going on. It's a complex organization, especially during COVID. And they made a decision that they didn't want to move twice with us. So they have made the decision to relocate to a different site in town, downtown. We're not involved in it, but I'm careful about it, honestly, because one thing I've realized in my business now over the last 20 years, you do not want to be the person that terminates a post office lease. Post offices, for whatever reason, create a lot of emotion in people when they close. And thankfully, they found a good place in another location in downtown that has plenty of parking. And I think it'll be great for the post office. It'll be great for the residents, and it'll be great for the shopping center that they're going to. But I'm not going to say the address. I'll let them announce
that they're going to.
A grocery anchored shopping center that they may be.
I wonder what that could be.
I'll leave that to you
to
deduce.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. What happened to the trees on Corbin Drive?
So that was a scary moment for us, candidly, and in the bucket of things you don't expect to happen. In development, anything can happen. We have developed a number of buildings in Darien over the course of 20 years, and we never were asked to, and maybe it was my oversight by the town or oversight by us, to be candid. And so if we were guilty of this, I'm sorry. We were never asked to post the trees were being taken down. And I don't think that we're required to do that along the post road. But as you probably know, there's been a recent kind of uproar around Eversource, clear cutting areas of Darien to kind of make safe the power lines or protect their power lines. And so there was a recent incident over on Littlebrook Road where they tagged a bunch of trees. By the way, I grew up on Littlebrook Road, so I know that area well, and I was sensitive to it as well because I lived on the other side of the train track at the end. And those trees did provide a great buffer. Although when I was a kid, they weren't there. The homes were newly built, but that created a bit of an uproar around town over Eversource taking down trees. It got people more dialed into and focused upon the importance of trees to our town and to our world as a whole. And so there were a couple of people who were pretty upset about the fact that those trees were coming down. Now, as I tried to explain, it's a fine line. Those trees were not really great street trees. They were heaving up the sidewalk, creating a pretty unsafe situation. There were a lot of tripping hazards along Corbin Drive. And I encouraged everyone that was upset to take a walk down Corbin Drive and really just see what that condition was, because trees, as much as we don't like to admit it, trees do have an expected life. And some of those trees were at or beyond their expected life, and especially in a street condition. So there was a hearing. The tree warden, the town had approved our removal of the trees through the zoning process and understood that we were replacing those trees with literally multiples of more trees. And I do take the point that was made that, the trees we're replacing will be immature and will take some time to develop into what we were taking down. So I am sensitive to that point. And I felt bad about it, but we're increasing the number of trees downtown by a significant amount. I can't even remember, honestly, the total count right now. I can get that for you though. What we have actually been also doing, just in the spirit of trying to be a good corporate citizen, is we're working with the land trust to try to create some additional tree plantings in another part of town, just to kind of offset the removal of the trees, the temporary removal of the trees that we've done.
I was just going to say, David Genovese is our guest today on Community Matters. He is the founder of Baywater Properties, and we're talking about the Corbin District project, which is coming up. But just to circle back to the trees, anybody that watches TV 79 religiously probably has seen Planning and Zoning Commission in action. And, they hold long, very detailed meetings. So I was of the mind, having watched your project under development over the years, that the removal of the trees was nothing capricious. It had been proposed and approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission, right? Which I guess just means, maybe you didn't put the signs up that the trees were coming down, but there are ways for the public to be heard before decisions are made. And if you're really interested in preserving trees or open space or anything else in town, this is my opinion, get involved. I mean, follow the land use commissions. There is plenty of access for public comment in those things. And, there are things that go on in this town, and you can't say, nobody ever told me.
Well, that was
a new restaurant going up someplace, or a fast convenience store. I mean, months and months of hearings.
I don't think that there has ever been a developer as transparent as I've tried to be in the course of this project. We still maintain a website called yourdowntowndarien.com, on which we posted every public hearing video from TV 79, any public meeting we had on TV 79 that was taped, all of our presentations, all of our plans, all of the letters and communication with the town. So we tried to make it super easy, right, for people to stay abreast of what was going on. And so that was also kind of my point. We had already talked about this, but I would say, I don't want to belabor the point, but I would say that also some good did come of it, even though I got a couple more gray hairs, because the construction companies were lined up and ready to go. And we did, to clarify too, we did post the trees on that case after we were asked to do it. We did post it. That's what triggered the issue, but which is what the posting is for. Right. I mean, it's meant to make sure people are aware.
You mentioned this is a project that has been under development for at least 15 years, probably in your dreams for longer than that. And Darien has changed in that period of time, especially in the past couple of years. And you have some good, interesting demographic information. Maybe you could just remind us, because we all live in Darien and maybe we're not aware of the changes that are going on, but how do you pitch a community like Darien to a prospective store owner or someone that wants to look for a place to develop? What do you tell them about town that we might all, not be aware of at this point, especially the
Well,
changes in the past couple of years?
sure, sure. Well, let me begin by sharing a true story about a tenant prospect. So before COVID happened, before we knew the word COVID, I had been approached by a woman in town who had moved here, young, with a young family. She was interested in what we were doing. She reached out to me through our website. She'd worked for Ralph Lauren and in Manhattan, and was very, very interested in what we were doing and the changes that we were proposing, and wanted to kind of just offer an opinion. And I have conversations like this with people literally every week. They come to me from all avenues. It's pretty amazing. I joke that I'm sort of a walking focus group, around this project, and it's true. It's true. But she came to me because she said, I have these friends who've owned these restaurants in Manhattan for a while, and I really want you to meet them. They do a great job. I think they'd be great members of the Darien community. They'd be a great business to bring. And so she organized the call. We met. I met the principals, and these guys grew up in Manhattan, running originally like bars. Then they moved into a restaurant called Pizza Beach, and then they opened another restaurant called East Pole, and then the East Pole Fish House. And they basically said to me, we know our customers very well because our customers were our friends as we grew up in Manhattan, and they have increasingly been talking about leaving Manhattan. And
This is pre-COVID.
This is pre-COVID, and the town that we keep hearing over and over again about from our customers is Darien, and we think that a lot of our customers are moving to Darien, and so we think there's an opportunity for us to just follow them and bring what we do to the suburbs, and we think that would be a great idea. So that was like that was about a year or two before I had ever heard the word COVID, and it was just interesting to hear. I started to hear it again and again, but obviously COVID was, as so many have called it, sort of an accelerant of good and bad. And in this case, this net migration out of Manhattan happened, and I think the number's like 370 families moved to Darien in like 12 months. Our residential real estate market, which had been pretty depressed, it was kind of a sad state of affairs in Connecticut generally, suddenly became very strong. And so those folks have come out, and it's become very widely known that they came out to Darien and other suburbs. And now other businesses that honestly would not have talked to us 2 years ago, 3 years ago, are expressing strong interest in growing in the suburbs and growing in these suburbs like Darien. So COVID was a curse and COVID was a blessing, as we've probably all heard too many times. But one of the blessings was, this in-migration and of a broad range of people. I'm so excited to see, honestly, people doing all kinds of different things. I feel like when I moved out to Darien, I'd grown up here, but I moved to Manhattan for a few years. I came back in 2002 with my wife. When we came back, I feel like everybody was sort of the same. They all worked at, Lehman Brothers or, Deutsche Bank. We had so many financial services people. It was that we were at the risk of being a kind of boring town. And I think that now we have a lot more diversity of employment and a lot more diversity overall. And I'm super excited to see that. I think, Darien's just it was always a great place in my personal view, but I think it's becoming an even better place because of all these changes.
Yeah, but also one of the other things that happened during COVID is because of lockdowns, people stopped shopping in bricks and mortar retail stores. And Amazon unleashed this tsunami of cardboard boxes on our doorsteps. You talk to the bricks and mortar merchants, Is there a future for retail in this post-COVID era when the convenience of an Amazon or you name it can bring something to your doorstep in less than 24 hours?
Yeah, that's the most amazing thing. Maybe one of the more interesting aspects of all of this. So Darien, in my view, has always had a great tradition of local retailers. The Darien Sports Shop, who just celebrated their 75th anniversary, kind of as the flag bearer of our local retail mix. But Helen Ainson, everything is rosy. Bill Jensen at the Darien Toy Box. I mean, these are amazing people who live in our town and some who live nearby, and they bring like a fabric texture rather to the place, and they make it different. I had my fears, to be candid. I started this a long time ago, as we talked about, and I had my fears, great fears, years ago, that maybe the world was moving in a bad direction for what we were proposing. And before COVID, I mean, it was worse. 2 or 3 years ago, we talked about the a retail apocalypse and how all these online retailers and direct to consumer internet brands were showing up, like Faraday and Warby Parker, the maker of my glasses here. And those stores were saying, those businesses were saying that they were never going to open bricks and mortar, that it didn't make any sense. There was no reason to. Why spend the money on the rent? Why spend the money on the employees when you can be an internet brand? But what's so
and there was
interesting,
also the Sono collection was getting ready to open. I guess it's been a year now,
yeah,
maybe
it's
at
about
least.
two. It's about two. Yeah.
Has it really been two
Oh,
years?
well, let's see. No, it's yeah, this will be
I
the
think they
second
opened
Christmas,
before Christmas last year. Yeah.
just before Christmas. And
And I think
you're
you
right.
were concerned about, well, who's going to go into the Sono collection? There seems to be plenty of space in the Stanford Town Center Mall, but would people go to the mall instead of opening on the Post Road?
Yeah.
And what did you find?
So what we have found is that first of all, the internet retailers have discovered that the cost of acquiring customers on the internet has gone up so much because Google, is pushing the cost of search engine optimization, and in Instagram and Facebook and other means of marketing have become kind of crowded. Warby Parker, who originally I don't think intended to open more than a few stores, is opening dozens of stores every year now. They've opened a store in the Norwalk Mall. They opened a store on Greenwich Avenue. They have embraced street retail, and they now see it as what they call sort of an omni-channel opportunity, where you can market online, you can market on Instagram, you can sell over the internet, but you can also have people stop into the store. And what they're finding is that where they open stores, internet sales go up as well. So it's important to be, in all channels. And that's that's what most of the well-capitalized, smart retailers are doing, as I see it today. Sono Collection opened up. We were very worried about it. The Nordstroms opened up. Bloomingdale's opened up. I had a few conversations with Gina Zangrillo about it. We were very worried. I was very worried. She said to me at one point, that her dad would talk about it. And, when the Stanford Mall opened, everybody was so fearful about the impact that the Stanford Mall would have on the Darien Sports Shop. And Mr. Z said, don't worry, we do something very special here, and our customers will not abandon us. And I think that that's proven to be the case with the opening of the Norwalk Mall. I was probably most worried for the sports shop around the mall with Nordstrom's and Bloomingdale's, to be candid. And then if the sports shop were to leave, that's sort of an anchor for us. So they're important to downtown, very important to downtown, and I think our community. So I was worried about the impact of that, but they're doing well, I think, through this. I know that Nordstrom's has not had the impact that we feared. And the other stores that have opened in the mall are not, for the most part, stores that we were pursuing for our project anyway. We lost one to them, but now they may be engaging with us again, Warby Parker. So, I think that it's a very dynamic time we're in retail. And as I always say to people, it's important. People want to support local retail. I believe that COVID really, truly underscored the importance of our local retail to us, because they did, when they could reopen, they did it, and they provided a lot of comfort and necessary goods for us. But I think that people will buy like commodity products, dog food and, maybe some of their groceries and so on. They'll continue to do that online. But when you're spending $100 or $150 on a shirt, if you're spending that kind of money on your clothing, I think you're gonna stop into a store and you're gonna go to a store and have fun with Rosie and Bill Jensen. It's not the same.
If you're
So
spending $100 on your shirt, I would suggest you check out the Amazon Basics collection, which is far more utilitarian, but we digress. David Genovese is our guest. I'm Jim Cameron. I'm the host of this program, Community Matters. David Genovese is our guest again, and we're kind of updating everybody in town as to what's going on with the Corbin district. There's a list you provided me, which I'm not going to go down because we could spend another hour talking about some of the targeted tenants. And I assume that even though you've just broken ground, you're actually starting to line up people as merchants to go into some of these retail spaces. But I'm just going to show people this list. And these are not signed deals. These are,
correct.
when you say targeted, these are the kind of tenants you would like to have. Is that true?
Correct. Yeah, that's our from our merchandising plan, and basically just helps us to articulate to potential retailers the kinds of people, so we can give them a sense of the place we're trying to create.
But you've also been very good compared to Westport, for example, which has a Gap, a Banana Republic. I mean, you have specifically over the years curated non-chain, best in breed merchants in a variety of different product categories and restaurants as well too. So, good for you for doing that, because that's what makes the town different and not just a clone of, the Upper East Side or something in Manhattan.
Well, I mean, that's been our mantra for a while. When we started with the whole Connecticut Main Street program in 2003 or so, the emphasis was on local business and unique retail. And, we just looked around the landscape candidly and saw New Canaan and Westport and Greenwich being populated with a lot of national retail, and the mall in Stamford at the time. And we thought, why does Darien need a J. Crew? Like, it'd be nice, but that J. Crew won't do that much business. So we should work harder to find great local people. And, and somehow, the people, we find them. Somehow we find them, whether it was, Rosie Costello at Everything is Rosie, Bill Jensen. We put up a sign. We very rarely put up leasing signs. And we put up, in this one case, we put up a sign in the store that Bill now occupies. And like 2 days later, he showed up as a recently retired Exxon executive and said, "I've always had this dream of opening a toy store." And we said, "Cool, let's do that. And we'll help you do it." And so that's how we met Bill. We're opening hopefully soon. He's just about to begin construction, a really unique crepe store. Jim, I think you're going to love it. Crepe Choupette.
I've heard about this crepe place.
Yeah, the owner is Adil Choukari. He's very French. He's very charismatic and kind. And I think he's going to be a big hit in Darien.
Great. I want to move on because we got a lot of land to cover here. No pun intended. Beyond the retailers who existing Darien merchants or Darien residents will be visiting and frequenting, hopefully, you hope as well as they do. There's also going to be some apartments in there, some residences. Tell us about the people that will be living in the Corbin district and beyond those that are just selling.
Sure. So the project has a total of 116 apartments on site, and then 12 units of housing that we built at an offsite location on East Lane off Old Kings Highway North. In Darien, we have inclusionary zoning. So 12% of the housing that we create has to be affordable to someone making 80% or less of the state median income.
What does affordable mean? I mean, those are relative terms, I guess, town to town.
Mm-hmm. Well, the formula is based on Connecticut state median income. So it ends up being like for a 1-bedroom apartment, about $1,260 per month is the limit on the rent you can charge. And so I wanted to do something. I'm a bit of a glutton for punishment, so I always like to try to make my life more complicated, I think. But I saw a need in the community. I have a lot of friends who have children with different abilities, and there was only one group home in Darien, the cottage, which was privately funded. And I thought there'd be a great opportunity to do something for a community that has been underserved in our state generally. So we proposed an idea to take over an old nurse daycare center in a single family house on East Lane and put in place two buildings that look like single family homes, but in which there are 6 efficiency apartments each for adults with different abilities. And so we just completed that and turned it over. The residents are moving in literally as we speak. Ableist, our partner in that project, is now doing all kinds of great things. They are taking over the Darien Library Cafe, which they'll announce publicly next week. They're opening next week. And they're doing some programs at the Y and the Depot. And then 2 units, the 2 affordable units on site downtown, will also be rented through Ableist to adults with disabilities with the limit on rent based on income.
How big are the other apartments, the non-rent controlled, so to speak, apartments?
They all range in size from 1,000 to 1,800 square feet. So the downtown
2 bedrooms,
units,
3 bedrooms,
2 bedrooms at the 15 to 1,800 square foot size, and 1 bedroom will all be about 1,000 feet, 1,100 feet. Similar to what Penny and I did at 745 Post Road, which has been very, very well received.
And which is 745 Post Road?
That's a building we built at the corner of Academy Street and Boston Post Road by Starbucks. And it's called Mead House. There's a pediatrics office on the first floor and then 8 apartments above.
Right.
So that was our first sort of experiment in real, like true luxury housing downtown. Penny had built apartments above Grove Street Plaza, and I have built six apartments at above 1020 Post Restaurant. But Mead House, 745 Post Road, we took to another level. And we were really focused on, the kind of apartment that you might be excited about if you were selling your house in Darien and downsizing. The pattern here has been so often for so many years, people get ready to downsize. They sell their home and they move to New Canaan into a condo, or they move to Rowayton to a smaller property. But the taxes are very high. We thought, and I think the town has come to agree that, there's a place in the market for a larger apartment building, a larger apartment unit. And we want to retain some of our older people. I mean, if we boast that we're the youngest town in Connecticut, and that's great. And it's exciting and it's great if you're a young family, but it's a bit lopsided too. We want to keep them. We want to keep the older folks here, that middle group here, and we want to keep them here, and we want them to continue to enjoy the community, and we want them to be here honestly, like as just a simple economic development thing. We want residents here who are paying taxes who don't have kids in the school system.
Right. So one of the questions people ask, are you going to, in these new apartments in the Corbin district, are you going to be flooding the schools because families are going to want to move in there? But it sounds like they're a little on the small side for families. Is that true?
I think so. I mean, look, you can never know for sure how it will play out, but I do know from experience with our existing apartment buildings downtown and in Darien, in the 2 apartments or the 3 apartments that Penny and I have built, I think there are 2 children in the school system out of a total of 6, 14, like 30 apartments. So it's a pretty small number. And actually it's only 1 is in the school system because the other children that are in 745 Post Road are in private school. They go to New Canaan Country School. So those are renters by choice who, and that's the thing that's changed so much over time too. When we started this, I didn't think anyone over the age of 50 would rent an apartment. I just thought that generationally we were all brought up thinking, we have to own, we don't want to rent. And what we found is that a lot of people are comfortable renting. They do feel like, they may sell their house in Darien, buy a winter home in Florida, and then rent a smaller place in Darien to maintain presence here some months of the year. That's a great resident of these apartments. That's a good thing for the community. It keeps people tied into the community. And that's who we see being a large part of the market for the product we're creating. These are smaller buildings. They're They're carefully crafted. I mean, the whole architectural idea was to basically build a series of buildings that would look like they were designed by a different architect and in a different period of time. We didn't want it to look like a big monolithic structure. I think that, the empty nester we're targeting that's going to be important to them to feel like they're in sort of a unique place. So when you look at our images of our buildings, which I shared with you, I think you'll see they do have like different character and complexion, and they'll be differently designed. So there'll be something in there for everyone, really, whether it's like the modern apartment or the more traditional kind of New England style apartment. And that's our expectation. I'm pretty
And
confident based on the feedback I've gotten that that's who will end up living here.
and as much as you encourage people to enjoy a walkable Darien, there will also be parking. How much parking do you have to put into a retail apartment mix like this?
We're it's almost insane. We're building over 800 parking spaces.
800 park, and so some of it will be subterranean. Is that
Yeah,
my
yeah. So
understanding?
there's one level of underground parking in the first phase for the residents and some of the office employees, and then there is one level of underground parking in the second phase for office employees, retail employees, apartment dwellers, and then there's actually a structured parking garage that's wrapped with the building, so it's concealed, so you won't see it. But there's a 4 level, one level below grade, 3 levels above grade structured parking deck on basically the site where the Bank of America building is today. And it's 800 parking spaces. It's pretty enormous. I know that if I don't get this right, I'm going to hear about it every single day. And parking is one of those things that is among the top 3 things we need to get right to succeed in our projects. So a lot of care went into it. And while I wish I didn't have to create as much parking because it's a massive investment, I think it's the right thing. We talked a lot about this with the zoning board. We do think like Uber and rideshare and the potential for driverless cars exists. I think it's probable that we'll have some or all of that. We have some of it already. I do think some of that may have impact on parking requirements in the future, but unfortunately, we're not there yet. And we need to get this. We need to make sure this works when it opens.
So there's this big hole in the ground on Corbin Drive opposite the post office, and that is phase 1 of your project, I believe.
That's right.
And when will that be finished? And then when do you start phase 2?
Well, if you ask my construction team, they'll tell you that will be finished in the first quarter of 2023. But if you ask me, it will be done for the retail spaces at the end of next year. So the goal is to finish that building by the end of next year, or those 3 buildings by the end of next year. We may not be done with the apartments, but we'll be done with the parking and the retail. And and that's all that the community really cares about in a way. At the initially they care about like what's in it for them. When will the restaurants open, or when will the stores open? When will you bring us something new? We will build those 3 buildings. We'll move Bank of America and the other tenants along the Post Road and Corbin Drive into those buildings, and then we will knock down everything from Corbin Drive to the I-95 exit 11 ramp. And so that would happen in very early 23. We actually were working yesterday on the final design of the parking garage, because we actually have to buy the parking garage, the structured parking garage that gets wrapped in a building. We have to buy that in like March of next year so that it's available in time to be delivered when we need it. So, this is it's a highly sequenced process. And then the goal would be to deliver the other retail and restaurants at the end of 23 or very early 24.
Who's paying for all this, David?
My partners and I are basically, we bought the original land that started the project. Some of the landowners who owned property around us became our partners. So for example, the Tibbetts family and the Wyckoff family became our partners. They owned the buildings at the end of Corbin Drive. The family that owned the Bank of America building contributed their land into our partnership and became our partner, a shareholder. And Vince Durentis, and Kathy, who own the gas station. I always say he's the luckiest man in America. He is we're basically building that building for him. We brought the financing to the table and the knowledge to do this, and we are building that building for him, and he'll be the owner of that building. We'll just be managing it for him through construction and beyond. So it's a little complicated, but yeah, we bought the land and our partners contributed their land, and then we arranged financing with People's Bank, a long time relationship of ours.
You're privately held, but I have to ask. I mean, how much are we talking about in terms of the cost of the land acquisition, and how much is it going to cost to finish the buildings and the retail space and the apartments and everything? How much money are we talking about?
The whole project is over $200 million. So it's an enormous investment in Darien and in Connecticut. I hate to even talk about it. I don't like to think about it because it's so significant, but this thing took on a life of its own. And, we just kept thinking about how we would make sure we were doing the best possible job that we could. And it appeared to us that, the only way to do the best job was to incorporate some of these other properties. It was Bruce Beinfield's idea, for example, to incorporate, the properties on the other side of Corbin Drive, the Wyckoff and the Tibbetts and the gas station property. Bruce said, you built this amazing building at 1020 Post Road, and Penny Glassmeyer built this amazing building, these two amazing buildings at Grove Street Plaza, and you're going to build all this nice real estate next to a gas station in the middle of your downtown. Is that really the highest and best use of that land? And he was right. And so, I think in the end, it's kind of an amazing story how it all came to be. And we had a groundbreaking last week. We invited so many people who had participated and contributed to the cause and supported us at different points and participated even on just the boards and commissions. And, I felt badly. It was pretty cold out. I wanted to say thank you to everyone. And I think it took me 20 minutes to say thank you to everybody that I had who'd participated. And I still forgot a few people. So, I get too much credit for being sort of the band leader. There's a lot of people involved in this, and a lot of people in the community that have helped support us here.
What's the phrase? It takes a village, literally?
It takes a village. Yeah, this really is a great example of that.
To build the Corbin district. And we're going to wrap it up. We could go on forever, but I think you probably have some business to tend to. We just wanted to give everyone an update on how things were going. Anything we should watch for in the coming months? I mean, you're going to be doing construction through the winter on that Corbin Drive hole in the ground?
Yeah, so the next phase, they're actually pouring the concrete for the elevator chutes right now, or shafts right now. They'll be forming the foundation in the next week and getting going, and you'll see steel coming out of the ground early next year. We're going to create an addition to our website. So we maintain a very active social media presence, just trying to give people updates on what we're doing, and also, to be candid, trying to support local retail. We call it the Corbin District on Instagram or on Facebook. You can look that up. And there's a website, thecorbindistrict.com, which has a lot of information about the project and the tenants and the businesses downtown. We're going to be adding to that a new construction section, so that if people are interested in just kind of what's next, they can go online and see it. I have found in my life that the absence of information creates more anxiety than is necessary. And the more we communicate, kind of the easier life seems to be. So although there's more risk that I'm wrong, publicly wrong on something like schedule, but at the same time, I feel like it's worth it. And I'd rather be wrong, but at least share the information so that if people want to know what's coming next and what's happening, they're going to have an easy place to go see it. So I would encourage people, if they have questions, to go to thecorbindistrict.com, or shoot me an email, or my email address is david.genovese@baywater.net. Hopefully the spammers aren't following you, Jim, on TV 79. I'm not going to get bombarded by spam emails.
Make no promises.
Yeah, we live here and we want people to be, comfortable with what's going on. So if you have any questions, you can always pick up the phone and call us.
Are you going to put up a construction cam to allow people to watch the construction in time lapse or something like that?
Yeah, we need to get that up. We just have been too busy to do it, but we're going to get that up there. Yeah, one of our partners, Scott Wyckoff, who's one of the sons of Terry Wyckoff, our partner, he lives in California. So that's the Wyckoff cam. That's going up soon. Good. And we'll make that link available.
Great. Well, we'll check that out from time to time on TV 79. David Genovese, our guest today on Community Matters. I thank you very much for joining us and keeping us updated. You have been a perennial guest over these many years working on this project, and I hope that we'll get invited to the ribbon cutting when everything is open.
Absolutely, Jim. Definitely.
Great.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time, and thanks for having
Thank
me.
you. And thank you, our viewers, for watching another edition of Community Matters.